Dear young brothers and sisters of the new generation of Hindustan, Namaskar. In today's episode, let us continue to review the methods adopted by the British to suck the blood of Hindustan to the last drop. The British East India Company imposed many rules in such a way that what all commodities were produced by the people of Hindustan were to be sold to them at the least price which was decided by them. And at the same time, the people were obliged to purchase cheap quality materials which the British brought to Hindustan and constrained the people to buy at the maximum price which also was decided by them. And in addition, heavy duties were imposed on all commodities, including those of the basic necessity. A typical example was salt, which nobody could avoid in the day-to-day life. Heavy taxes were imposed on all the commodities which the people of Hindustan were obliged or constrained to buy. And these heavy taxes which were imposed for every common commodity was extracted by applying all possible means, terrible means. This we will come and see later. We can represent the methods adopted by the British to suck the blood of Hindustan to the last drop just in this way. And there is no other way. This is the best way to express how they sucked the blood of Bharat Mata to the last drop. This is the only method to exhibit them. And then during the next episodes, we shall see how this was a true and honest comparison. As it was narrated by Mr. Edmund Brooke in the opening speech at the impeachment of Warren Hastings, who was the Governor General of British East India Company, 1772 to 1785, Bengali women were dragged out by British tax collectors, naked and exposed to the public view, scourged means harassed and tormented before the people, put the nipples of the women into the sharp edges of split bamboos and tore them off from their bodies. Can you imagine? Can you imagine such a situation? And these people auto-proclaim that they are the cultured and civilized population, and the representatives of this cultured and civilized population of British were those who did this terrible, unimaginable torture to the people of Hindustan. And this was what our ancestors had to suffer from, these barbarians. There is no other means to explain what they did. Am I correct or not? Don't forget this, please. Here we have a statement of F.J. Shore, the British administrator in Bengal, before the House of Commons in 1857. And this statement says, the fundamental principle of the British has been to make the whole Indian nation subservient in every possible way to the interest and benefit of Britain. Every successive province, as it has fallen into our possession, has been made for higher taxation. They have been taxed to utmost limits, and it has always been our claim how greatly we have raised the revenue above that which the native rulers were able to extort. Again, after a mere 24 years of service, punctuated by and including 4 years of home leave holidays, the British civil servants was entitled to retire at home on a generous pension paid by the Indian taxpayers. Here is an example. In 1920, Ramsay MacDonald estimated that some 7,500 Englishmen were receiving about 20 million British pounds of that period annually from Hindustan as pension. And in 1901, William Digby calculated the net amount extracted by the economic drain from Hindustan in the 19th century with remarkable precision at 4,187,922,732 British pounds of that period. Worse was to follow in the 20th century. And by pointing the guns and bayonets towards the heads or throat of the people of Hindustan who were accustomed to live in peace and harmony, and those people got totally disoriented and they were constrained to work as slaves for the least wages this East India Company paid to them. And when the bayonets were pointed towards the throat and guns were pointed towards the head, the people of Hindustan had no other option than obeying to the orders just for the fear of death. And that was what happened. Were these truths taught to the people of Hindustan or the successive generations in the schools? And that's also one of the reasons why majority of the people of Hindustan are the least patriotic. This is a fact. And simultaneously, through their maximum arrogance and brutality, the British slowly induced a sort of inferiority complex in the depth of the mind of the people of Hindustan. When the people who lived in harmony and felicity were constrained to fall into the poverty under this type of arrogance, automatically this method worked. And that inferiority complex, which the British induced in the mind of the people, also by destroying our education system totally, exactly as this Thomas Babington Macaulay recommended in the British Parliament, as we have seen in the last episode, people got totally destroyed. And this was a systematic method to destroy Hindustan. I hope you remember about this statement by Thomas Babington Macaulay in the British Parliament on the 2nd of February 1835, where he recommended to break the backbone of our great nation. Even though many people question the authenticity of this document about the statement of Thomas Babington Macaulay in the British Parliament, if we simply compare what all were practiced by the British in Hindustan with this document, they correspond 100%. And this is a fact. So whether it is authentic or not, both correspond to the statement and what all were practiced by the British in Hindustan. And this fact, nobody can deny. See, he stated that, I don't think we would ever conquer this country unless we break the very backbone of this nation, which is her spiritual and cultural heritage. And therefore, I propose that we replace her old and ancient education system, the culture. For if the Indians think that all is foreign and English is good and greater than their own, they will lose their self-esteem. And it was this recommendation which was put in practice by the British, inducing a certain inferiority complex by destroying the self-esteem of the people of Hindustan. And that's what happened. And this inferiority complex still prevails in the depth of the minds of many of our citizens. And if you are not convinced, please go to Google and search by typing the inferiority complex of Indians. You can see not less than 100,000 articles and videos. And this also is the reason why many people, even in this century, feel a sort of complexity in front of the British and the Americans and majority of the Europeans. And this should be radically eradicated from the mind of the people of Hindustan. And this also is one of the objectives of my attempt to prepare and share these videos in YouTube nowadays, which is possible now. It was not possible 10 or 20 years ago. So remember to share these videos to your friends and relatives of the new generation. That would be a great thing from your part, to collaborate with me for this great objective, for the benefit of our nation. That's all. By the end of the 19th century, Hindustan became the biggest source of revenue for Britain. And the atrocity, the cruelty which was practiced by the British East India Company through their soldiers spread rapidly all over the nation, and people became terrified, and they were constrained to obey these arrogance. And this situation spread all over Hindustan. Furthermore, healthy citizens of Hindustan were recruited as second-grade soldiers of the British East India Company, and they were constrained to serve Britain in the 2 world wars, and they were named Sipahis, not first-grade soldiers as the British. The number of soldiers or Sipahis, as I have mentioned, and the support staff sent from India on overseas to serve His Majesty's Great Britain during the World War I was 1,215,318, of which 54,000 died, 65,000 wounded, and 4,000 missing. Please observe the body language of these soldiers, and you can have an idea of what all emotions are boiling in their mind, in the depth of their mind. It was estimated that the value of India's contribution in cash and kinds amounted to 146.2 million British pounds, worth approximately 50 billion British pounds in today's money. And this is an affirmation which I have taken from the book The Era of Darkness by Shashi Tharoor. So briefly, what the British did to suck the blood of Hindustan to the last drop, step by step, was this: that is, invading everywhere and creating panic, then constraining the local rulers to surrender to them, and finally they sucked the blood of Hindustan to the last drop. If you feel that these are all information, a true citizen of Hindustan must remember and think for the benefit of the nation, then please share these videos and episodes to your friends and relatives, to the new generation. Thank you very much for your kind attention to my words. See you in the next episode. Jai Hind.